Welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast, where trauma survivors become healthy thrivers. Each month, we'll feature a theme in the trauma recovery and empowerment field. To promote your recovery, healing, and learning how to build dreams, here's your host, Karen Robinson, transformational coach and therapist.
Hello, welcome to the Heal, Thrive, Dream podcast. Today, our guest is Suzanne Jean. Suzanne is the director of Fit for Defense Consulting. She operates a unique anti-bullying program called Power Ed. This is a holistic life program that inspires confidence in participants to be heard, safe in the community, and free from abuse through assertive communication, self-defense, and awareness exercises. Suzanne has over 50 years of experience in the design, implementation, and accreditation of community-based programs in the social service field. She possesses lifelong experience as a martial artist with a black belt in karate and an advanced Tai Chi practitioner. Holy smokes. Suzanne is a recently published author of Bullying Stops Here: Steps to Safety, Strength, Confidence, and Empowerment. Suzanne, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, Karen. Happy to be here. I always love to talk about the program Power Ed. So
that sounds amazing. So I will share at the beginning here, my husband's a fourth degree black belt, and my kids are all involved. I'm the only person in the family that's not involved. My joke to my family is, well, I'm a lover, not a fighter, and you guys are all fighters.
Is he a fourth degree in karate or taekwondo, or what style?
His fourth degree is mixed martial arts. It's called Aikido. Yeah.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah. So I always say I live with personal ninjas.
Yes. And it's always handy to have. So
my first question to you, Suzanne, and I don't know this from anything I've read about you so far, is a lot of times our guests are survivors of trauma, or they help survivors, or they're both. Are you by chance a survivor of trauma as well?
No, I'm not a survivor, but I started very early on working with youth, street-involved youth, who are survivors of trauma and escaping very tragic situations.
Okay, so you're pretty familiar with the impact that trauma can have on others.
Very familiar. And the development, I'll tell you a little bit about the development of the program, but it is about empowerment. And sort of, I saw how these kids' potential was being blocked by their self-doubt, their insecurities, their sense of, they didn't feel worth or any kind of strength in their abilities, and fear. And the behaviors of trauma are quite isolating. I mean, obviously, when people are angry or violent, they end up ostracizing themselves. So I was studying martial arts throughout I believe I started around 16. And then I got into social services. And what I saw was that we were basically criminalizing youth because we couldn't deal with those behaviors. We couldn't deal with that anger.
Right.
And the violence. And so they ended up in jail. So I realized that maybe there was a potential to start teaching childcare workers how to deal with conflict and to de-escalate situations and to begin to understand trauma. And at that time, we're talking the early 70s, there was not a lot of understanding of what that was.
Right.
A lot of the knowledge came out of studying the Vietnam vets. So it was really difficult to see these kids. And once they were in jail, it was, they learned a lot more skills. They basically didn't re-enter
Yeah.
society.
That was not helpful skills.
Yeah. So I started
I
started working with youth care workers to try to deal with that. Was my entry point. And then I saw how I could empower them so easily with the exercises that I was doing, and began to sort of hone my self-defense skills and how do you teach an unskilled, someone who doesn't do martial arts, self-defense. And what most people don't know is that self-defense is probably around 90% psychological. It's not physical. Right? It's that sense of confidence. It's that sense of awareness. So I began to develop the program, and I started to teach kids. But before that, I was working with women coming from very abusive backgrounds. And I have written a book called Bullying Stops Now. The first chapter is a very interesting story where I received a call one day from a woman, and she said, "Hello, you Suzanne?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I heard you're okay." I said, "Well, that's good to know." And she said, "I'm a sex trade worker, and we're really in trouble. We have, we've lost 2 of our friends have been murdered. There's a serial killer. He's killing with piano wire."
Oh, wow.
And she said, "We need self-defense." And I said, "Well, I don't know that I can help you, but I'm willing to listen and have a conversation." And she said, "Okay, meet us at 2 a.m. at Fresco's." So I didn't know.
Working hours. Typical working hours.
So Karen, 50 women showed up at 2 a.m. 50. They reserved the back of the restaurant. Wow. And
it was also in British Columbia? Or were you living somewhere else at the time?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Community called the West End.
Wow.
And I was blown away. And we talked and they said, we really need your help. And so I said, okay, I don't know if I'll try, but you have to commit to kind of the 3 rules. Or you need to show up, and you need to come somewhat straight, like not loaded and drugged out. Mm-hmm. But the important thing is you need to try 100%. You need to give me everything you got to learn this. You need to try everything I asked you to do. So we left that night with a commitment. The woman who had organized it knew the pastor at a church, and she said, "I can get the basement of the church, and I want the classes to be at 7 a.m. before we go to bed."
Oh, yeah.
So I went, "Okay." So that was kind of the beginning of my big journey here in understanding fear, understanding safety. And I built the program of 4 pillars. So the first one is around attention. And it's about really tuning into the here and now. Like, what do you see and what's around you, and what are you feeling, and what's going on in the environment. And with our social media, phone-driven, computer-driven world, we are kind of losing that ability to really tune in outward, right, to what's right in front of us. So paying attention to those details is really important. And I do a lot of exercises in the program that kind of build that skill, including peripheral vision, all those kinds of things. The second is awareness. And that's kind of the heart and soul of the program. It's powered by awareness, because it's about that self-study where you understand what it is you believe, what it is you feel, what it is you need, what it is you want. Because until you know those things, you can't figure out even what to be safe is.
Right.
And then I do a ton of exercises on communication, assertive communication. So first it's kind of saying, like, what are those things that I feel and want to need, and I'm worthy to have. I deserve, right? That self-worth piece.
That's a huge piece right there.
That's really lost in trauma.
Right.
And then how to communicate that. So lots of exercises that look at breaking through those self-imposed limitations, those negative habits, learning to be safe. But I do it through physical exercises, not only psychological, because there's a real disconnect there cognitively for people.
And dissociation, right?
Dissociation. And society looks at trauma, people suffering with those behaviors, they look at it as moral deficits or lack of willpower, or, they've had a history of being put down. So to kind of switch that around, I go in the back door. I teach a boundary for a physical boundary. And then they go, oh, yeah, that's a boundary. And then we can move it to emotional boundaries and psychological boundaries.
Yeah.
So I play on all those levels to always driven towards, self-love and empowerment. So, yeah, loving yourself and caring for yourself. Self-defense is about caring for yourself. It's a big piece, right? The fourth
and
pillar.
Isn't it? I'm sorry. Can I just ask a quick question?
Yeah, you can, of course.
I think it's interesting that the woman decided, or the organizer, she decided to reach out for help, but not until women, because they were beaten up probably frequently. It's part of the work. But it wasn't until women were actually getting murdered that they reached out for help. Like how?
Well,
that just speaks volumes, right?
Yes, it does. Because the higher the level of risk, the more people are disengaged from their true selves, from that place of safety. One of the things there that I learned, and well, I'll just wrap it up. I'll wrap up the 4 A's and then I'll talk about the women more. So avoidance is the next one. How do you stay safe? Like I said, you have to know what's safe for you. And what's safe for me and what's safe for Karen is going to be different in terms of, how we interpret the world. But understanding that and understanding a little bit about how the brain works and, the fight or flight, and understanding fear in your own body is part of it too. And we do a lot of pair practicing. So they get to smack focus pads, which are these pads that you can strike. Your family probably wax focus pads. It's a great release of energy. So again, the avoidance of the program is not just physical. It's how do we stay safe emotionally? How do we put those boundaries around us? How do we say no? It's a tough one. If we've always been pleasing people and saying yes, how do you set a boundary and say, no, that's not okay? So kind of really teaching people how to do that. And then the last one is action. So that's the self-defense part. And I teach a very, very basic concepts that everybody can learn and master. And, it becomes, again, more than just physical action, because it's about making good decisions and choices when you're looking at avoiding things that are going to be harmful to you and not support yourself, right? So the women, they were amazing. They did show up drunk or stoned.
Well, they had to get through their shift, right?
But they showed up.
Yeah.
And they did give me 100%. And I was back in my dojo learning techniques that you could use in cars, like I was learning as I was going along and passing it on to them. But they started watching each other's backs and not, if something was risky, or not getting into cars, not taking clients. And they started, supporting each other in that way. which I thought was incredible because they do have a tight community, but now this community involved, protecting each other. And they started a bad sheet where they wrote down the customers who had harmed people or who were into very strange things, and they wrote it down and they put it in cafes so that those Johns were actually identified in their license plates and their cars.
Wow.
So this is like what can happen, the spin-off of empowerment.
I have another question. Okay, so I'm guessing, well, I know because you would have already said it, that you haven't worked as a prostitute.
No.
So how was it that you had the heart to help them? Where did that come from? How is it that you weren't another person judging their work? And like, how was it that you were willing? Tell me about your process of being willing to help.
I was trained as a psychologist, but I've worked in social services for 50 years. I'm a people person. Say that. I'm a heart person. Yeah. So I loved, Power Ed is for all ages. It's for children, mainstream youth. I deliver it in the schools. Bullying is a huge problem everywhere.
Yeah.
I deliver it in workplaces. I'm doing a workshop next week on violence in the workplace. Yep. Little bullies
you can be bullied.
Little bullies grow up to be big bullies.
That's right, everywhere, they do.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I even work with seniors because seniors are at huge risk. And seniors if the seniors that I'm working with, the generation, they do not know how to say no. They do not, they're getting scammed. They're not safe. They're isolated. They're using drugs and alcohol to extreme. So the program, I'm working with them too. But my jam is the at-risk youth. I still work with the really high-risk kids. That's my groups or my choice.
Now, is the Power Ed the name of all your programs?
It's the name of all the programs. Yeah. I call the seniors one Stand Strong.
Stand Strong. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. But Power Ed is
needed.
Yeah.
So now the nursing homes need you too.
Yeah. So where I'm at now
yourself.
I'm desperately trying. It's a train the trainer program. I'm desperately trying to get instructors trained to kind of meet the demand. And so that's where I'm putting a lot of my efforts right now. COVID was really difficult. COVID kind of closed the program down for a couple of years there because it is a in-person program. It's not something that you can do online, really. It's a person contact program.
Okay, but the senior class, couldn't we move that to on virtually?
We might.
The verbal pieces. The verbal pieces. Yeah. Well, how are you going to grow, Suzanne, if we don't get you virtually?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I could probably do like little lessons, right?
Yeah, at least the verbal pieces, like learning how to, and some of the standing with your shoulders back, like some of the poses, power poses on saying no and speaking up for yourself, maybe.
Yes.
I think, there's room there.
You're just giving me more work.
I know, but keep training people. One of them will have all the skills you need to get online. Yeah.
So it's a wonderful program. I was, one of the questions I'm asked is, you're teaching kids self-defense and don't they go out and use it to hurt each other? And I've taught like thousands and thousands of kids and I've never had one incident because the self-awareness, and another story in my book, you got to read my book. It's all true stories, and they're all inspirational stories about, people who have really used this program to kind of advance their well-being. But I do an exercise with all groups and it's called, What is a Bully? Why do people bully? And what can you do about bullying? And my daughter's an instructor and she's an elementary school instructor. She was running a class in an inner city school and she had a really tough kid And she says, Mom, could you come and do it with me? I'm just not feeling confident because I know he's going to be a problem and it's going to disrupt the class. So I said, yeah, sure. So we did the exercise. It's the first day exercise. And I break it into 3 small groups, but they all answer the questions. We circulate the pages and then they choose somebody to report back. And I'm in the group with this little guy, Johnny, and what is a bully? And he looked at him, he said, you know, you're a bully, don't you, Johnny? And I thought, okay, here we go. He's going to get really angry. He's going to act out. And he looked at him and he said, yes, but I don't want to be.
No.
This almost broke my heart, right?
Yeah.
But what happens is when they come back as a group, they say it's 1 in 4. 1 in 4 kids are bullied. So there's a bully in there. When they come back, they report back. And for the bullies, it's the first time they see how they're perceived by their friends as negative. They see that they're bullying because they're weak, because they have problems at home. because
they're carrying out what they're learning at home.
And they see that and they go, oh, and that's when the light bulb goes on. And I don't want to be that. I don't want to be seen as weak and having problems, you know? And so, I mean, there's no acknowledgement, but I see their faces and I can tell who they are by the little faces. Anyway,
yep.
Johnny made a 360. That kid.
I know he did. Go ahead.
It's you hold up the mirror, you know, it's self-awareness. It's amazing how powerful it is. And what a happy thing, right? And I followed up at the school to see if it was sustainable, and it was. And he was really good at the physical stuff. And I always do this thing of demo where they show each other their moves. And he was in there and he was doing his demos and other kids, we're really good at this, Johnny. He'd never heard that. All his attention seeking was negative. All of it. So suddenly when the principal came to the last day and we put on a demo and he was the star.
Your best student. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. You can tell I'm passionate about it.
Well, it was beautiful. It really was. I want to hear a little more about your book in terms of where people can get it. And did you send me an electronic copy or am I dreaming?
You're dreaming. I would be happy to send you a copy.
Well, what I do when people send me books is I review them for you on Amazon or Goodreads.
Oh, I might have sent you a copy. I did mail a copy.
Okay, let me check, and if not, I'll get with you offline to figure out how I can get it in my hand so I can review it for you. But so it is on Amazon?
It is on
Amazon.
Amazon.
To purchase? Okay.
That's right.
Did you have other books, or is that your one and only book?
That's my first book. I'm contemplating a children's book now.
Well, I think a book about the women who work the streets too. Like, I know you probably got it sprinkled in your book, but I think their stories could be pretty powerful too.
Yeah.
Just saying.
The first chapter is their story, and it really leads nicely into the 4 A's, you know, attention, awareness, avoidance, and action, and how I'm not doing anything new other than adding this whole physical self-defense element. And one of the things that I'm also incorporating in the program now is more mindfulness, and the teenagers, the youth love it.
Yeah.
Like I kind of pilot it with my kids to see how it goes, and they're just to give them some self-regulation tools around breathing and being able to understand that they do have some control over their emotions.
Beautiful.
Is really, really impactful. So I've been doing different exercises, and I'm adding it to the curriculum. So it's an ongoing it's an ongoing piece of work, really, the curriculum. So I have written curriculum so I can train instructors, and they have all the lesson plans laid out for them to teach it.
So is someone listening who wants to give back, they're a survivor and they're on their healing path and they want to give back, and maybe your program is like, that's what I want to do. Like, do people have to be in person for you to train them? Okay.
They could get in touch with me and we could work that out. I do travel and I do train in different places, and I could do things perhaps virtually. I prefer to have them get a group together, and sometimes we can amalgamate cities,
Okay. And what's the best way to reach you to learn more about that opportunity?
They can go to fitfordefense.ca, my website, and my email and my contact is on there. I'm working hard at becoming social media savvy. So I'm working hard at it.
Women of a certain age, we didn't grow up with it. So I hired a team. That's what I did. And
yes.
Now my team is trained, and now whenever I have survivors who do their own business, who start their own business, they hire my team with their social media to get help. It just takes a lot of stress off. Because it's a lot of work, all the different channels and stuff now.
Yeah.
So good for you to get on that. Are you on YouTube yet?
I just have to hire a team. So now you've given me 2 jobs.
I know. I'm really good
do
at
some virtual training and hire a team. Well, if I hired the team, I could probably do the virtual training. They could help set it up.
Well, we can talk offline about that too. I probably have some resources for you. That's helpful.
Wonderful.
And there is something else I was going to ask you. Okay, so I am really interested in the senior piece too. Like, I know your heart's the juveniles, which is great. So there's populations of people that are disenfranchised, right? It's our trauma survivors, and then there's the teens, and then the elderly, the geriatric population too. So what kind of curriculum is it? Okay, I think you said it's the same curriculum, but what about...
No, it's not. It's not the same curriculum. So slips, trips, and falls is the #1 cause of death and the #2 cause of hospitalization. And if a senior goes into a hospital, it will probably die. So it is.
On that positive note.
It can be. The positive note is it can be prevented. And so Stand Strong is about that. It's about building awareness about balance, flexibility, developing a peripheral vision. So what happens is your balance is located in your ears,
right?
Inner ear, right? It's not, a lot of people think it's your center, but it's in your inner ear. So as soon as you drop your head, you're actually taking yourself off balance. Your husband will tell you this. If in sparring, you keep your head up, right?
Yeah.
Seniors are always looking down because they're worried about falling.
And then they make themselves fall.
Exactly. And there's, awareness about hazards and confidence in themselves. That again, it comes back to building that real, to increase their potential to be safe. They have to begin to have some confidence in themselves that they can do.
See, I didn't understand earlier. I thought your senior program was just about them advocating for themselves, but it's more than that.
Oh yeah, they do physical self-defense. They do self-awareness exercises. They do communication exercises. But the physical part is a lot focused on preventing slips, trips, and falls, and preventing them from scams.
Yeah.
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 How to maneuver that whole world. And it creates, and the program also creates a really nice social aspect because they start to talk to each other and they make friends, and it's really great.
So when are you going to publish the senior curriculum on Amazon for people to buy?
Yeah. That's another thing I haven't done is.
I wish people listen to my podcast could see my eyebrows.
Don't go on her podcast, everybody, because you'll end up with too much work.
There's so much work to do to serve others. There's so much suffering in our world.
Yes.
And I don't think I believe in human cloning, but I think in your case, we need to make an exception. We need another Suzanne or two.
Well, on that note, all of the programs are a lot of fun. I wouldn't be able to get anywhere with this if it wasn't fun.
Yeah.
Fun is really important.
That's beautiful, Suzanne.
And, there's lots of play, lots of games. I use that to transition when things are really heavy. Mm-hmm. If a conversation is difficult, and I use that to move things. And there's always big smiles.
Yeah. I do the same thing in my work. Yeah.
With the children, I did the body scan. Like I'll do those relaxation exercises, the body scans. And one little kid said to me, Suzanne, could you do that thing again where you put us to sleep?
That is so precious.
You're so good. And the youth, oh my gosh, they love that. Like they just there's so much anxiety, Karen. So much anxiety.
Well, it's an epidemic now in the U.S. I don't know if Canada has said it yet, but the CDC in the U.S. has said it's an epidemic, anxiety. So in my therapy practice,
that it's a great pursuit. I think a worthy pursuit.
Definitely. All right, so we have to wrap up. So tell us one more time your website so people can find you. Okay,
it's Fit for Defense, but it's number 4 because it's attention, awareness, avoidance, and action. And
very
the defense is spelt with an S, not a C. So fitfordefense.ca. And they can go on there and they can get in touch with me. And I also help organizations set up anti-bullying programs in their organizations. There's a chapter in my book on how to do that. And I'm happy to help with that. Like my heart is just about getting this out there and helping to stop bullying. It's not okay.
It's not okay.
It hurts.
And
it causes so many, it costs our system so much harm and money in the consequences of it. Yeah.
I will have your website in our show notes for people that want to go back and find it. Also, a shout out to her book again. If you could purchase and support Suzanne's work, it's called Bullying Stops Here, Steps to Safety, Strength, Confidence, and Empowerment. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for being a guest today. It was lovely talking with you, and I'm sorry I gave you extra work. If it wasn't good, I would have done that.
Thank you, Karen. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening in today. Please join us next week, same day and time. Also, I would love for you to check out my website, healthrivedream.com.